locked up in the way we did things 15 years. He's trying to get us to get to the place where we can understand that the quality has to improve. And I believe I'm surrounded by some people that's excited, that understands and realizes that he that began the work is faithful and just to see it fulfilled all the way to the end. And God's ultimate plan, his ultimate purpose is through the forming process to get us to a place where the quality of life for you and I is better than we know it. I believe the day of having to have a preacher lay hands on you and rebuke sickness out of your body is over, because I believe there's some believers that comes to a place and realizes that if the quality of my worship goes up even stronger than ever has before, if I can get to the place where my quality of God and my quality of life can be so much more than it was, that God can pour more of his quantity in me and I can lay hands on myself. I can pray for myself. I can believe for myself. I can encourage myself. I really wish I just had 2 or 3 people, just a handful of witnesses, because he said where any 2 or 3 are gathered, he would be there. So the fact that I know somebody's on the same page tells me that all 3 parts of the Godhead is in this place, and he desires to fill us in ways he never has before. But we've got to get to the place where we understand we can't put more God in our old programs because it will bust it all up. We can't put more God in our old praise and worship because it would mess up the plans and bust everything, and his spirit would go out dripping and everything. In verse 6, and on day 6, it said when God created man, Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, he created man in the likeness. He formed him in the image of God. Guess what? God desires that you have the creative power to create things. You are filled with his spirit, and you can speak his word. What does that tell me? God desires to get some people together that has an imagination like him, that can think like him, that can talk like him, that can believe him, so that when you look at a situation that is dark and void and nothing is good in it, that you can speak the creative word. Why? Because there's enough quantity in your quality that you can speak to dead things and see them come back to life, that you can speak to old things and command new life to come back. At the same time, God desires, because we have the quality and the quantity both inside of us, that our spirit is contagious, that the excitement and the freedom that we have, because it's more than a song. It's more than just jumping when we sing it. It's more than just singing no more shackles, no more chains. But there's a freedom that comes with the Spirit, because he said, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. God desires for your quality of life to be at the state that you can go into places and see the liberty of the Lord break out and the freedom of the Lord break out, in the sense that people can be free from troubled minds. They can be free from addiction and free from cursed lives and generational curses. God desires that we can be filled with his word, because he formed us, and because our quality is so high and filled with his quantity that when we speak his word, it does not go back void, but it comes back and performs what we sent it to call. I'm talking to a prophetic church today, and I'm speaking out of my heart, not necessarily out of the Bible, because I believe, I'm not arrogant, but I believe God has chosen this church to improve the quality of the life of the believer for everyone around. And I believe he's going to use this church. Why? Because God has challenged us to enlarge ourselves, not to lock God up just in English or Spanish or Portuguese. He's not wanting us to lock it up in a translation. If it's King James, New International Version, he's not wanting us to lock it up in anything, but be at the place where we understand his quantity is much larger than anything we can hold at the present state. So he said, if I can get a few people that will desire, and just like 2 Corinthians 7:14 said, if my people will pray and seek my face and turn from their ways, then I'll hear from heaven and heal their land and move in their life. Think of it, if we could get to the place where we could say, God, you're more important than my agenda. You're more important than my Sunday afternoon plans. You are more important than my status quo life. God, I desire more of you. I desire something new to be poured in me. And God's talking back saying, okay, you've prayed, you've seeked my face. Now turn from your ways. Because it's not until you turn and that God will hear. He's waiting for us to get to the point where we understand for God to do more, we're going to have to do more. And it troubles me that we are locked up in a life where we feel like we can ask God to do something and sit back and wait for him to do it. Because that was not his plan, that was not his purpose. We have to improve the quality. How do we improve the quality? How do we do it? It's not a trick question. How do we improve the quality to get more of God's quantity? The $1 million question. I found you can only change something if you want to.
That's right.
And in case that was too deep, change is not change until it's changed.
Yes.
I would encourage you to say that. I'm a trained professional. Change is not change until it's changed. And we can talk about all day long experiencing revival. We can talk about all day long believing God to do something new. But change is not change until it's changed.
That's it.
Until we get to the place where we desire for our quality to become better so that God's quantity can fill us even greater. Until we get to the place we desire that. And desiring it is just half the process. Until we can get to the place where we realize whatever it takes for me to do to change, I will do it. If you want God to his quantity to be in your marriage, guess what? You will never experience a godly marriage like you desire, locked up in the old quality of your relationship, believing and treating each other, acting like a fool to one another, cussing out one another. And I know none of y'all do that, so I must be saying this for somebody on the DVD. Slapping each other, smacking each other. Until you can learn to treat each other with respect and change the quality of it, God will never be there with quantity. Can we just apply this to our life for 2 minutes before we leave? Praise team, you can go ahead and come back. If we want God to get us out of debt, if we want his quantity of blessing in our life, we cannot get his quantity and our old quality of spending habits. And I know you didn't want to hear that because God's like the lottery. We come and pitch our tithes and offerings in and think we're going to hit the jackpot one day. And that's not where it happens. We can't expect to get more of him locked up in our old life. We've got to change the quality. I believe that God is challenging us to get to the place where we desire change, because that's the first step.
Amen.
And I only want you to raise your hand if you're really serious about this. Do you want change?
Yes.
Because if you ask for change, you will get it. But change comes in seasons. Have you ever heard of the slogan or the phrase, the changing of seasons? They got that because when the seasons change, if you get up every day looking for it to change, you'll miss it. But one day it's there. And if you want warm weather, stay right here in Virginia. If you want snow, you don't have to go to Alaska right now. If you'll stay right here in Virginia long enough, the seasons will change and you'll find snow. If you get in a place where it's snowing and you want not necessarily hot weather, but mild weather, if you'll stay in the place long enough, seasons will change to affect you that you can live in the climate you desire. But understand, as seasons change, it takes some time. And I'm not talking about a super microwave popcorn type blessing that you put it in, you set the timer, and when it dings, it's over. I'm talking about something that may take some time to change. But if we can stay planted in his house long enough, I believe we can flourish in the courts. That's what Proverbs said, that if it's in the root, it will be in the fruit.
Yes.
That if we can get planted and say, God, I want change, change me.
Yes.
And then we act accordingly. Faith without works is dead. I have such a problem, Bishop, Pastor Dave and Amy, have such a problem with people that say, I'm full of faith. That says, God, heal me of cholesterol. And then on the way home, they get 4 Whopper meals. And they got 4 because they're trying to better their health, so they didn't get 5, but they got 4. And they don't even take time to chew it up. It don't even hit their back teeth. They just swallow the whole thing whole, just going down. Faith without corresponding action, without works, is dead, right? So you can't tell me you really have faith when you ask God to do something impossible. You tell me you have faith when you begin to act accordingly and put action with your act of believing. And if we want change, we've got to get to the place where not only we have faith to believe that God has got enough to change the quality of our life and enlarge his quantity in our life, but we've got to put some action with that. And guess what? If we want God's presence, we got to change the quality of our praise. That means you can't get more of God locked up in your 18-year-old praise habit. In other words, just doing this is probably not going to get you there. If you've been doing this for 15 years, 5 years, 3 years, and you still hadn't got anything else, something tells me that's probably not working for you. It's going to take maybe this. And some of you that's been here for quite a while, it might take some of this.